All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Sean here at Zyxel. This is our monthly new partner introduction webinar. It was supposed to take place on Tuesday, and unfortunately, we had to push it back with no announcement. So thank you for joining us today on a Thursday. There's actually more of you here than I was expecting. Um, so this is a webinar we do every month, just sort of for those new partners that have recently started reselling our product, or for older partners that are just looking for a little bit of a refresh of what's been going on lately with Zyxel. This is the presentation for you. It's a high-level overview, sort of touching on all the main products that Zyxel offers, giving you some general rules of thumb on how to understand those products, as well as a little bit of background on who Zyxel is. Um, as we go through today, feel free to send in questions using chat or the Q&A function in the Zoom interface. Either one works. And I'll do my best to answer those questions as we go through today. Now, we're not going to be getting too in-depth on anything. We try to have a little bit more in-depth focused webinars on certain product lines. So if you want to know more, join one of those or reach out to your salesperson. Or if you have a question as we go through today, feel free to send it in. So we'll go ahead and start with a little background on Zyxel for those of you new to us. I know the Zyxel name brand is not really a household brand here in North America, even in the networking space. Um, but despite that, we've actually been doing this for quite a long time. We got founded all the way back in 1989. Um, and our headquarters is based out of Hsinchu, Taiwan. Our US headquarters is based out of Anaheim, and we're in the same neighborhood we were 35 years ago when we first got started in the US. Now, part of the reason you don't really hear about the Zyxel name brand is Zyxel's focus, particularly in North America for all these years, has been primarily focused on the ISP and telco space. Um, so we've been selling our product to ISPs, big ISPs, and so because of that, we hadn't really pushed or advertised our SMB products as much in the US as we have in other markets around the world. For instance, in Europe, we're very, very big. I think we're the number one security firewall vendor for under $500 security appliances in Europe and some other, big numbers like that. Um, so we're slowly working forward to try to replicate some of that success here in North America. Um, as I mentioned in Europe there, we do operate in 150 different global markets. And over these years here, we've deployed over 100 million hardware devices. So let's talk a little bit about how Zyxel is structured. Zyxel, who I'm working for, is actually known as Zyxel Networks, and we are underneath the Zyxel Group. So the Zyxel Group owns a number of different businesses, only a few of which are listed on this slide here. But the main one to focus here is on Zyxel Communications. So Zyxel Communications um, is our telco side of things. So it's a separate business that focuses on the telco and ISP space. They have a very different business methodology over there versus what we would see in the channel. Since the products usually require a certain level of extra testing, certification, and then generally some customization, customized configs, customized firmwares, and large quantities of hardware. So because of that, those products are not normally sold through the same distribution channels as the Zyxel network products. So for the last few years, these have been two separate companies. And historically, it's Zyxel Communications has been where the focus has been in before we split off into these two different companies to allow us to focus at Zyxel Networks on really growing the business networking space here, what we call the channel. Now, we do have access to Zyxel Communications hardware. They have access to our hardware. So there is sometimes some little overlap or confusion over where to go. You may go to a trade show and end up talking to someone at Zyxel Communications when you'd want to be talking to us or vice versa. So it does get a little confusing, but generally, if you're buying through distribution, um, through D&H, Cinex, Target, etc., you're dealing with Zyxel networks. Where with Zyxel Communications, most of their business is taken direct because they're dealing, like I said, in customized products and usually quantities of, thousands of units per order. And then some of our sister companies here, the main one I just wanted to focus on is MitraStar. So MitraStar is our manufacturing arm. So MitraStar was spun off almost 20 years ago as their own separate company. And they own manufacturing facilities in Taiwan, China, Soon, I believe both Thailand and Vietnam as well. And they manufacture most of our products, not all of our products, but most of our products are handled by our sister company there at Mitristar. So, with that out of the way, we'll start by talking about Nebula. So, we're talking about Nebula first because Nebula touches pretty much all of our different products. So, what is Nebula? Nebula is our cloud management platform. Common term today, you're probably familiar with that, what that is, but we'll talk on some of the benefits here going forward. But one of the cool things about Zyxel is we were the first to launch a full stack cloud management platform aimed at the SMB space. So we launched Nebula all the way back in 2016. Cloud isn't something new for us. Cloud is something we've been doing for a long time. Back when it was primarily just an enterprise solution or an AP solution, we had a solution that was aimed at the SMB space, a lot more affordable than something like Cisco Meraki, with a lot more flexibility of being able to manage switches, security appliances, access points, etc., where most of our competition that wasn't aimed at enterprise was just focused on access points. So these days, you can use Nebula to manage a little over 130 different products that we offer. Now, you aren't locked into using Nebula. All of our Nebula products can also be managed standalone. There's two different modes. Um, so by default, all of our hardware out of the box is designed to be in standalone mode, where you type in the IP address of the product and you'd manage it through a GUI or through a command line interface. But you can easily switch these over to Nebula, and you don't actually have to do anything on the product itself. And I think I've got a slide talking about that coming up. So anyway, Nebula gives you a single URL to go to, a single pane of glass that allows you to manage all of your customers and all of their Nebula devices through the same pane of glass. You just go to nebula.zyxel.com, log in with your Zyxel account, and there it is. It's all you've got to do. Your customers are there and you have access to all of their equipment. So one of the cool things is you don't need to take the hardware out of the box to configure it. So if you want to use Nebula, all you have to do is use that Nebula app that we offer, scan in the QR code that you can find on the outside of the box or on the belly label of the product, and assign that device to what we call an organization, which would be probably your customer and a site under that customer. And our hardware then, when plugged in, will automatically put itself into Nebula mode if it sees you want to manage it in Nebula. So you don't have to switch anything there. And once you've scanned that QR code, you can do a full configuration of the device. There is nothing you need to do on the device itself to be able to scan it. Sam will talk about pricing here in a little bit, but short version is Nebula's free. We have some optional licenses which unlock additional features. Sorry, Sam sent in a question. I wasn't being clear on that, asking how much it is. So short version is free with some optional licenses that we'll talk about later. Um, but it's cool. So you can do your full configuration and then your tech on site, all they have to do is plug it in, make sure it has power and an internet connection, and it'll take care of everything else itself. It'll see you want to manage it in the cloud. It will put it in cloud mode and it will automatically download the configuration you've set up previously in the cloud for it. That, aren't maybe as technical as you normally would. So we do offer you a mobile app. So it is a mobile app. It is for phones. It is not for tablets. And it offers some basic overviews for you. It gives you ability to see what's going on in your customers' networks, gives you the ability to see some basic troubleshooting details, maybe change some wireless configuration settings. But that's all it's for. It is not what you're doing your management through because these are business networks and business networks can get very complex, and doing that through an app is not the ideal way to do it. So what we do is the actual management is done through a web browser. So it'll work on any sort of PC, Windows, Mac, Linux that has a web browser. That's how you manage all your customers and sites. It will work also on like a 10 or 11-inch iPad. It'll work on the web browser there just as easy for you. The mobile app's there just to give you notifications and be a little troubleshooting tool for you. It's also the tool that your installers are going to use. So you can use that to, like I mentioned previously, scan the QR code to assign a device to a customer in site. You can also use that mobile app to take a photo of where you've installed that hardware. If you have to send somebody on site, a different person on site later, they can always use the mobile app, find the device, and find the photo of where it was installed because let's face it, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, maybe you aren't the installer, you go on site, you've forgotten where each individual piece of hardware may have been deployed. So we give you those tools through the mobile app. So the idea behind Nebula is anywhere you have an internet connection and you have a web browser, you have access to your customers and their networks. There's no setting up port forwards, there's no setting up VPNs for remote access. Everything is handled through the Nebula Control Center. And just as we're talking about Nebula, I do have a little bit more in depth of a Nebula introduction webinar, although I'm covering most of the main bullet points today here. We also have a Nebula tips and tricks or 101 or best practices, whatever marketing decides to call it this month, later, where we go a little bit more in depth on some of the configuration and some best practices and explaining kind of how some of the more advanced things in Nebula work. So just keep that in mind if you're interested in learning more. We do have one of those webinars coming up later this month. So Nebula was designed from the ground up with the idea that you're going to have multiple customers and your customers are going to have multiple sites. So everything when it comes to how we've established and set up the GUI in Nebula has been built around that idea. Unlike some of the other SMB cloud solutions that have come more recently, which are really focused on letting you manage your own business or letting you manage, maybe 2 or 3 sites. Nebula gives you access to be able to manage an unlimited number of customers, an unlimited number of sites, an unlimited number of devices. So Nebula is going to automatically grow for you. There's no additional licenses you need to buy to unlock additional tiers or units. Down, Nebula has been. Hello, hello. I hope you can hear me now. I'm not sure what happened there. My Zoom told me it had an error. Hopefully I am back and you are all here and hearing me. So I was talking about Amazon AWS and our hosting. And so it brings up the question, what happens when Amazon AWS goes down? What happens if my customer's fiber gets disconnected? And the answer to that is everything keeps working just how it was. Even if it's a prolonged closure, the fiber's been cut, it's a week or more before things get resolved. All the Nebula hardware will continue functioning with the last known configuration. The only issue you run into is obviously you can't change configurations through the cloud, and the cloud logs and reports aren't going to be able to access the hardware, but the hardware itself will keep running. It doesn't need to ping the cloud and check in for a license key, after a day or 2 days. I know some of the other cloud solutions, if you're down for more than a certain period of time, the hardware gets confused and stops working. Not the case with Nebula. Your hardware keeps going. And worst comes to worst, you can always reset the devices back into standalone mode if you need to. But everything should keep running. The only areas where you run into maybe some issues is if you're doing MAC filtering or 802.1x authentication, and you're using our cloud-hosted database to do that. There is a setting in Nebula where you can say, "Hey, if we can't reach the cloud, do you want to allow everybody on, or do you want to block everybody until things gets restored?" But otherwise, everything's going to run exactly as it had been running. When it comes to things like firmware updates, those are all pushed out through the cloud. So again, there's no reason to go on site to update firmware to do anything like that. And we do give you the ability to schedule when those firmware updates are pushed out. When you're doing configuration changes, we keep track of the configuration changes you are making. And we make sure that those are applied in the correct order so no device ends up getting offline. I'm sure we've all at some point made that mistake when messing with VLANs, where you've accidentally configured them in the wrong order and suddenly you've lost access to one of your pieces of hardware before you've finished the config. Nebula helps prevent that from happening. So some of the cool stuff that also Nebula helps you do, it makes it really easy to do VPNs. You just doing site-to-site VPNs, you just select different customers or your different sites that you want to connect together. You tell Nebula what sort of topology you want to put in place, and Nebula handles everything else. For remote view users, we have the ability to generate a script that can be emailed out to iOS, Mac OS, and Windows devices to automatically configure the built-in VPN clients on those devices to reach back to the main headquarters there. And with Nebula, we have the ability to do some cool stuff. This is where some of the optional licenses come in. The ability to generate this topology view you see there, where we automatically map out all of the devices on your network, including non-Zyxel devices, show you what's connected to what their status currently is, and give you the access to at least some configuration settings just by clicking on the device itself, which is pretty cool. And we give you access to various different AI security solutions. On the security side of things, we have our ability to do sandboxing, for instance. On the switch side of things, we can automatically assign devices to specific VLANs based on the first 6 digits of their MAC address. So for instance, you can take your VoIP phones, you're getting them from one vendor, put in that 6 digits of the MAC address, and then anytime you plug in one of those phones, it will realize, your switch will understand that, hey, that is a VoIP phone, and it will automatically put it on your VoIP VLAN for you, so you don't have to manually configure the ports yourself. We also give you the ability to automatically free up PoE budget based on what your devices are actually using, so you can power up more PoE devices with the same PoE budget. And on the wireless sides of things, we have the ability to automatically do some troubleshooting of your wireless network and automatically make configuration changes to your wireless LAN radio settings to help solve any issues that we're able to detect. So now on to what was being asked about before, Nebula questions. Um, the main version of Nebula is free. So the free version, unlimited number of devices, unlimited number of customers, unlimited number of sites. The optional Plus and Pro licenses unlock some additional features in Nebula, primarily aimed at tools for troubleshooting, log retention, things like that. In my Nebula webinar, we go a little bit more in depth, but the short version of it is free version. Each of your customers you can have 5 min accounts for. Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of admin accounts. If you're using our cloud-hosted database, the free version gives you 50 entries. Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of entries. And then Pro Pack unlocks things like that topology view I was talking about, the AI for your Wi-Fi to automatically troubleshoot things, etc. So you notice I'm not really talking about Plus, and that's because we don't sell a lot of those licenses. It was something that was designed to compete with like Netgear's paid cloud solution. And what we've just found is for our customer base, most of you guys, if you want something more than the free version, you're just jumping straight to Pro, which comes up to the question that was sent in earlier. How much does it cost? So Pro Pack is $30 per device per year. So compares with like, Cisco Meraki at 140, 150 bucks, I think, per device per year on sale. So it's a very affordable solution if you want those additional features. At no point are you locked into the Pro Pack tier. If you decide, hey, I don't use those features, my customer doesn't want to pay for them anymore, whatever it is, and you decide not to renew, it just drops back to the free version. And all of your main configuration options are in your devices. It's not like you're losing access to your security settings or something like that. The only exception to that is our AV switches, the GS1350 series of switches. Those do have some functionality which is tied to a Pro Pack. Um, but otherwise, for most of your other devices, free version gives you access to all the features that most of you are using and needing. In addition to that, there is also what is called the MSP pack license. So it's a $100 license, and it is a per admin account license. Not all of your admin accounts need it, only those admin accounts that you want to have the MSP features. So the MSP features give you access to what we call the MSP view, which is a sort of a summary view for those of you that have lots and lots of customers to make it sort of easier to see what's going on all of those customers at the same time. It gives you the ability to generate admin teams. So instead of needing to add and remove admins on a per customer basis, you can generate teams and just assign those teams to your customers. So it just makes that a little bit easier for you. It gives you email and push alerts when hardware goes offline. Normally that's a Pro Pack feature, but with the MSP license, you will get those notifications for every customer you are managing in Nebula, even those using the free version of Nebula. There's some other little features in there that we go a little bit more into in the Nebula webinar. But again, you don't need that for all of your admins. It's only if you want those features for certain users. So, most of our customers that are buying it are buying probably two to three licenses for the main guys in your admin team. So just to kind of show you how Nebula works in the structure, the account owner is whoever creates the organization in Nebula. So keep that in mind. If you've got a bunch of different guys creating orgs, that's not the way to do it because you end up with a bunch of different owners and it can cause issues down the line if somebody quits or gets fired. So generally, all of your organizations should be created by the one master account that's not going anywhere. Um, and you can create orgs in advance. So what you can do is you can create, a dozen orgs and just leave them blank and empty. And then when one of your lower end guys needs to set one up, he just grabs one of those and renames it to whatever the new org needs to be named for that new customer. So again, organizations are what we are calling what are probably going to be your customers. Usually each customer is their own organization. There may be situations where you have customers with multiple orgs, but we won't get into that today. And then under that, you have your sites. So you can have an unlimited number of orgs, all with one owner, and then you can have unlimited mixture of different site types underneath that. And if you want to convert one of your orgs to ProPack, you do that on a per org basis. So if this organization has 10 devices, you would buy 10 Nebula ProPack licenses, and then the organization will switch from free to pro. If at any point you add some devices that are missing licenses, you are given a grace period, or if your licenses are about to have expired, you are given a grace period to fix that and add the licenses. If you don't during that grace period, it just drops back to the free version of Nebula. You're never getting locked out of your hardware or losing ownership of it. And then again, the MSP license sort of sits on top of all of that, linked to whichever admin account has access to that license. And I do want to talk about here really quick, Nebula is integrated with Circle. So for those of you that don't know, we have an online e-commerce platform, and we will talk about it at the end of today's presentation. And it is our online tool for resellers to buy discounted licenses. The cool thing with it is it syncs with Nebula. So you can go into Nebula, go to your customer, and say basically, hey, I want everything to expire in January 2027. It will tell you which licenses you need. It will take you over into Circle where you can buy the licenses, and then it will automatically assign and apply those licenses to your customers' devices. Something popped up. We got a Q&A. So James is asking a question here on the licenses, which is, so just to confirm, you cannot mix licenses on an org basis, correct? All devices in the org need to have the same license. So regardless of what those, if you have 10 devices, regardless of what they are, all 10 need to have a Pro Pack license before the org will convert to Pro. And that's sort of, as I said, I wasn't going to talk about it, but that's kind of why sometimes we will see you will have a customer and you will have multiple orgs for them for that very reason. Maybe you need access to Pro Pack features only for your access points. You want the access points to have access to that AI health, but you don't want to buy licenses for your switches or security appliance. You can do that by splitting the customer into two different orgs. For the most part, that works. Occasionally, there may be certain features where the devices need to be in the same org for it to work. For instance, if you're doing security on the security side, you're trying to do, oh my God, my mind has gone blank onto the name of it. That security synchronization between the security gateway and the access points, that requires the devices all be in the same org, but otherwise you're good to go. James has asked, does this work for NFR? I'm not sure what does the for NFR, no. And we'll talk more about how Circle and the pricing works a little bit later, towards the end of the presentation. One thing we just recently launched here is what's called Pay as you go service, PayG. And this is an easier way to manage your Nebula licenses and your security gold licenses. And so basically what you can do is you can go in there and find an organization in Nebula and convert them to what's called pay-as-you-go service. And instead of needing to manage and keep track of licenses and expiration dates, what it does is it tracks how many devices have been active in that org during the past month, and then automatically charges you on a monthly basis. So you will put a credit card in on your Circle account, and every month it will see how many devices you use Nebula, and if you had security gateways, how many of those were using Gold Pack, and it will automatically just charge your credit card a monthly fee for that. So it's a much simpler way to handle things if you don't like managing your licenses. Moving forward now to wireless. So all of our access points use what's called an RF first by design philosophy. Even our cheap, and I should say all of our 100 series and higher access points uses RF first design. Um, and that is a philosophy in how we design our hardware. If you've been selling Zyxel for a while, you probably are in the wrong webinar, but you may have met us at our shows. And what we used to carry around is a Ubiquiti access point, a Ruckus access point. At one time, we even had an HP Aruba access point, and then one of our access points, all similar Wi-Fi configs. And we would open them up so you could take a look and feel them. And one of the things you would notice is our access points weighed a lot more than our competition, even our more expensive competition. And that's why it's this RF first by design philosophy. Basically, to help optimized wireless performance, unlike our competition, we don't mount the access points, or excuse me, the antennas directly onto the main PCB of the access point. Instead, they are on their own separate daughter board that's separate from the main PCBA, and usually there's a RF shield between the two. And the idea behind that is to give you a little bit better isolation on the RF signals that are being received. Doesn't make any difference on nice, strong connections, but it makes a really big difference on those edge case scenarios where the customer signal is just barely making it back to the access point. And also to go along with that is our philosophy when it comes to building the hardware and making sure it lasts. So we do not use any electrolytic capacitors. We only use solid state capacitors. We also are designing our housing and the main board with the knowledge that one of the major causes of failure is heat fatigue. So you will find usually some form of heat sink pulling heat off of the board and vent holes allowing heat off of our components. So that's why a little $110 access point can have a lifetime warranty, whereas our competitor's $160 access point has a 1 or 2 year warranty on it. But they don't have the vent holes, they don't have those heat sinks. And that's a little bit extra we put in there for you. Also, going back to the RF first design, we also put in shielding for 4G and 5G LTE type cellular signals to help shield from those. So we get a lot of questions as to why that is. And it's because your 4G and 5G mobile phone signals, the border the same radio frequencies that we use for Wi-Fi. They don't use the same ones, but they border it, and they can bleed over and cause interference to Wi-Fi. Now, if you're deploying these in a house or a small office, you're not going to see that. Unless you're directly under the radio tower. Where we do see this as being an issue that this helps solve is in larger office buildings, larger condos, apartments, hotels, things like that. And that's because your radio signal from the cellular towers doesn't penetrate those buildings very well. So these larger buildings, they deploy what's called a DAS system, which takes that outdoor cellular signal and redistributes it in the building. So basically, in addition to your Wi-Fi access points, those buildings also have what are essentially cellular access points spread throughout the building. And they're very often using the same cable drops that your access points are. So you end up in a situation where you've got an access point, and just a few feet away, you've got a cellular phone access point that can cause interference. So our extra shielding is there to help prevent that. Going forward here, just you find all the same things you would expect to see in a business class access point, smart mesh technology, access to WPA3 enterprise security, 802.11 kVNR, traffic shaping, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have some antenna technologies that our competition doesn't offer and you may not be familiar with. So one of those is our dual optimized antennas. So you will know an access point has dual optimized antennas because the model name will end in a letter D or DI. So that's telling you it's got these dual optimized antennas. And what the idea here is that your traditional access point is optimized for ceiling placement. The assumption is you're mounting the access point on the ceiling directly over the area that needs to be covered. However, in the real world, you often can't mount them to the ceilings. Building codes won't let you put them on the drop ceiling. The customer doesn't want you poking holes in the drop ceiling, or the ceiling is 30 feet up and covered with all sorts of conduit and air conditioning vents that wreak havoc on your Wi-Fi signals. So the solution here is this dual optimized antenna option. And what that does is it lets you select between one antenna pattern that's designed for the ceiling and a second antenna pattern that's optimized for wall placement. So that way, no matter where you've mounted the access point, you can select the correct antenna configuration to optimize your performance. The other technology we have is smart antenna. And for whatever reason, back in the day when we came up with this, we did not trademark a special name for it. So there are other solutions out there calling themselves smart antenna that are not the same thing, unfortunately. Um, and smart antenna's goal here is to increase capacity, how many devices can be on the same access point, reducing interference. You can have a higher density, more access points in the same area before they start interfering with each other, and generally to increase coverage. And the way this works is the access point itself takes it into account where the client device is in relationship to the access point, but also takes into account with our algorithm where other sources of RF interference are coming from, whether that's another access point or a piece of industrial equipment that's putting off RF interference. And we have the ability to select from hundreds of different antenna patterns to choose the antenna pattern that optimizes the signal for that RF environment. And we do that for each individual client connected to the access point and for all the different sources of RF interference. So it makes a huge difference in those tough RF environments. So if you're deploying in like a school or an expo center or a warehouse, smart antenna makes a huge difference in performance. So now when we're talking about our access points, I'm not going to go through them all, but we do break them up into a couple different families here. So I want to talk a little bit about the differences between these families. On the low end here is the Simplicity family, and that is our NWA 50 and 90 series access points. So these are access points that are really aimed at the home or Soho or, small office type scenario. These only come with a 2-year warranty, and they're missing some of the features that you would normally find on our business class access points. So, for instance, the 50 series does not give you access to captive portal. It doesn't give you access to 8021X authentication. The 90 series gives you those, but it doesn't give you things like AP load balancing. Jumping up to the NWA 100 and 200 series, these are our true entry-level business class access points. These come with a lifetime warranty out of the box, and they give you access to all of those features you can find in Nebula. Jumping up from there is our Ultimate series, and they listed as the 3, 5, and 6 series here. I would call it the W series. If the access point model name starts with the letter W, it is part of our Ultimate series. So the Ultimate series is where you will find dual optimized antennas and smart antennas. So if you're looking for those two technologies, you've got to go up here to the W series. The W series also can be managed locally through the controller that's built in our security appliances. It also can do collaborative detection and response, where you can provide additional security services on the access point that are in coordination with the USG Flex security appliance. And the W series comes bundled with 1-year ProPack license out of the box. So those are what the 3 different series is there. James is asking if we have a comparison chart, and the answer is we do. Reach out to your salesperson, Andy, David, or Jacob. They can get you that. Um, at one point, New Partners, we were sending it out as a poster to you, but we do have that as a PDF that we can send to you. We have one that has all of our Wi-Fi 7 APs, and then we have a second one, which is a mix of Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7, just the best sellers. But yeah, it'll show you those differences between the different series, absolutely. So your sales guy can send that over to you. So moving on from there, I want to touch on Wi-Fi 7 a little bit here first, because we still get a lot of questions on it. There's still a lot of people that have not made the jump to Wi-Fi 7. So the short version of it is it makes things faster. It makes Wi-Fi faster. Part of the way they do that is the ability to support 6 gigahertz. So the 6 gigahertz spectrum is a new chunk of spectrum that's been opened up for Wi-Fi unlicensed use that has more bandwidth available than 2.4 and 5 gigahertz combined. So one of the ways we get faster speeds in Wi-Fi is to use wider channels. So historically, your 2.4 gigahertz was limited to 20 megahertz channels, and then they added 40 megahertz channels. When it comes to 5 gigahertz, to get the maximum speed on your Wi-Fi 6 products, you have to use 160 megahertz channels, and there's only 2 of those available in 5 gigahertz. Whereas with 6 gigahertz, there's 7 of those available. So you can have 7 access points, all using 160 megahertz channels without having any interference. So it makes it a lot easier to deploy access points and save interference issues. Now, what's the downside of using 6 gigahertz? First downside is a lot of hardware doesn't support 6 gigahertz. Second problem with it is 6 gigahertz. When dealing with radio frequencies, as frequency goes up, range goes down. So if you just simply swap out your existing access points one for one, you may find some holes in your 6 gigahertz coverage where you need to add some additional access points to it. And then the third thing with 6 gigahertz is it's unlicensed, easy to use indoors. If you're going to deploy 6 gigahertz outdoors, it requires specialty hardware because the FCC has special rules where basically your 6 gigahertz product is sharing spectrum with licensed 6 gigahertz users outdoors. So your access points has to be able to receive GPS to figure out where it is, and then has to talk to a third-party service that keeps track of licensed users, and then will limit your AP, which channels it can use and at what powers it can use based on any licensed users in the same area. So it's not just like with previous technologies with 2.4 and 5 where you could take that access point, put it in an EMA enclosure and slap it outside. It does require specialty hardware if you want to comply with federal law. The other thing just to highlight here is not all Wi-Fi 7 access points support 6 gigahertz. So that's something else to keep in mind. Some of the lower end products don't support 6 gigahertz at all, or like our NWA 110BE. They have one radio dedicated to 2.4 and one radio that can be either 5 or 6. And the idea behind that is to allow you to support your existing 5 gigahertz customers today. And once 6 gigahertz support is more ubiquitous, you can then use that same hardware and just flip a switch to start using those 6 gigahertz channel instead. Now, one of the cool technologies of Wi-Fi 7, it's not part of 6E, was what's called MLO, multi-link operation. So traditionally, your client device, your access point broadcasts on multiple radios, but your client device only broadcasts on one. So it either connects on 2.4 or 5, or with newer stuff, 6, but only one of those at a time. So with MLO now, devices that support it are able to simultaneously connect to multiple radios in the same access point at the same time, aggregating throughput across all of those different radios for faster speed, for lower latency, and for more tolerance of RF interference, because it can simply, if there's interference on 5, just stop using 5 temporarily and continue to send data on the other 2 radios. So that's a really cool technology. And with that, we're done with talking about Wi-Fi for the moment. Let's move on to our switches. So the first thing just to talk about here is we are in the point where a lot of networks are either now being upgraded from 1 gig support to multi-gig, or if they're not today, they will be soon, just to be able to support, Wi-Fi 7 access points, to be able to support higher definition multimedia streams, to be able to support, a large number of IP cameras, etc. So one of the questions you run into is, what speeds can I get on my existing cable? So Cat5e can support speeds up to 5 gigahertz for the full 100-meter length and can support 60-watt PoE power. Cat6 is what's required as a minimum to support 10 gigabits, but it's limited to a run of about 55 meters. So if you want to provide 10 gigabits up to the full 100 meters, you need to use Cat6a or better cables. But otherwise, if you're not going to 10, you can use your existing cable, chances are. So when it comes to our switches, we have a lot of them. So let's talk about how you can sort of figure out what each switch is. So when you're looking at the price list or you're a distribution looking for a switch, by looking at the model name, you can know a lot about what that switch offers. So we have a line of rugged switches that we don't really sell in North America. Those models start with RG. Our gigabit switches, where all the switches are multi-gig, start with GS. A multi-gig switch that only offers multi-gig ports is MG. Now, if you want a switch that's got 1 gig ports but also has 10 gig uplinks, those are XGS switches. If you're looking for a switch that offers multi-gig ports but also has 10 gig uplinks, XMG series, right? So we're just combining the two. X for 10 and then GS, or X and then MG for your multi-gig. XS series switches, these are switches that only do 10 gig. And then we've recently launched our CX series switches. So these are switches that support up to 25 gigs on the Ethernet ports and then up to 100 gig on the uplink ports. And then we often have a suffix on the end of the switch. So HP is telling you that this product supports PoE, either PoE plus or PoE plus plus. If it ends in EP, it's again a PoE plus or PoE plus plus switch, but it's got a reduced power budget. So what's happened here is a lot of people have come to us and saying, hey, I need a switch, I need PoE power, I need 24 ports, but I only need PoE power for, 5 devices, 8 devices, whatever it is. And I don't like paying all this money for all this budget I'm not using. So the EP series have a reduced power budget, but also have a reduced price. And then for those of you that are doing things where every port needs to have full power PoE, the FP series for full power. So basically high power, economy power, full power. And then if it ends in F, it's a fiber switch. So all of the ports are fiber. No copper ports at all. I'm going to skip this because we're running late. It's just talking about general, PoE and how it works. And then just to highlight here, we do also sell accessories. We do sell our own SFP modules. Unlike some other vendors, we don't force you to use our SFP modules, but it's obviously these are products we've tested and used, and it's easier for us to support. We also sell some direct attached fiber cables that you can use as well. So the switches themselves, in addition to that prefix and suffix, we also have different model series. So they'll start with 1915, 1920, 4800, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we sort of combine these together on our Nebula managed switches. The 1915 series is our entry-level Nebula managed switch. Going up here to the flexibility series, that includes the 1350 and the 1920, 1930s. These give you access to maybe a little bit more layer 2 features. And then jumping up here to our layer 3 light, layer 3 switches, that's our 2200 series, 3800, 4800 series. So those are kind of the main sort of differences for them. We do also sell some unmanaged switches. We sell desktop unmanaged switches. We sell some very lightweight web managed switches. Those are not in today's presentation, but we do sell those as well. Those are mainly used by like consumer applications and are primarily sold through Amazon, not really sold through the channel, but they are there if you do want them. The other product I wanted to highlight here is the PoE 12-3 PD because this is something we launched, I think, about a year ago, but a lot of people don't know we have it. So this is kind of like a PoE switch. So it can be used as a switch that's PoE powered, or it can be used as an extender when you're trying to run a link over 100 gigs, or excuse me, over 100 meters, and you need to extend it. This can work there. So it's a 4-port switch. One port coming in needs to provide 60-watt PoE power. And then you've got 3 ports out, which can be connected then to other devices. And it can pass through that PoE through those other ports. So it itself is powered by PoE, and it can also pass through PoE to other devices. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize we have, and it can come in really handy in a lot of different situations. And then lastly, I did want to highlight here this new CX series of switches. It's a true layer 3 cloud managed switch. That's usually sort of a fiber aggregator switch for us. So all of the ports are fiber. You've got 48 ports, which support either 10 or 20 gig fiber connections, and then you've got 800 gig uplink connections. It is Nebula manageable. They are directly stackable. They have hot swappable power and fans. So that's it for switches. Now on to security. So these days we have 2 types of security products right now. The first one is our USG Lite series. These used to be called the SCR series. They're now the USG Lite series. So these are kind of like a sort of like a consumer router on steroids. So they generally have Wi-Fi built in on them. They've got a 2.5 gig WAN port. They've got a 2.5 gig LAN port. They're manageable in Nebula. And they've got a number of security services that just work out of the box, no license required. We do also sell an optional Elite license, which adds some additional security features to them. But this is designed for that sort of small office situation where you're looking for a 1-box solution to do everything or a 2-box solution. So lightweight, basic security. If you need a true security appliance, something like a WatchGuard or SonicWall, that is our USG Flex series. So again, sort of that Soho type product is the USG Lite. Everything else is the USG Flex series. And we are in the process of phasing out the original USG Flex series and replacing it with the USG Flex H series. Now, the main thing when you're looking at these models, whether we're talking about the 50, the 100, the 200, the 500, etc., they all have the same basic feature set. Software-wise, these are the same products. The difference is the hardware configuration. How powerful of a CPU does it have? How many WAN ports does it have? How many LAN ports does it have? Otherwise, the features are the same. So basically, when you're looking for one of these, you can reach out to your sales guy and say, hey, the customer has this number of users. He's going to be using security or he's not going to be security. And they can help you figure out which device to use for that customer. So these USG Flex series products are sold 2 different ways. So for each model, you will see 2 different SKUs of distribution. One is a hardware-only SKU, and one is a bundled SKU. So the hardware-only SKU, just as it sounds, is you are getting the security appliance, and it is a security router. It does not give you access to any of the licensed UTM features. So you can either buy the license separately or you can buy the bundled version and it'll have a year of the UTM licenses bundled with it. So UTM is your content filtering, your gateway-based antivirus, intrusion detection prevention, your reporting functions, etc. So let's talk a little bit about security licenses because we've got a couple of different ones out there now. Um, so there's Entry Defense, which is for the USG Flex series. So this gets you some very basic limited UTM features, basically IP reputation-based filters based on the reputation of the IP address that the data is coming from. The Elite Pack, so this is the optional license for the USG Lite 60 AS, which unlocks some additional features. Connect and Protect. This is a security license for the access points. So this allows your access point to provide a certain level of IP-based security features directly on the access point itself, lack of security way your customer has. So this is primarily used by those who are offering some form of public hotspot and want to provide a little extra security to those public users. And they've got a router that doesn't support proper UTM security. They've got a router, consumer router, they've got a router their ISP provided, etc. And then Gold Pack. So Gold Pack is the UTM license bundle for those USG Flex security appliances. Now, something we do differently than our competition in this security space is we don't try to be a security company as well. So when you're buying WatchGuard and SonicWet and SonicWall and Fortinet, et cetera, they try to do it all in-house. So we make the hardware, we're good at that. We make the operating system, we're good at that. But when it comes to those optional security licenses, the signatures that are used by the hardware to do things like your antivirus, your anti-spam, etc., we partner with third parties to be able to provide that. So, for instance, here we use WebRoot for the IP reputation filter. We use Bitdefender for doing our antivirus and anti-malware. For our content filtering, we use Trellix, etc. So that way, rather than trying to be one guy that does everything, we focused on what we're good at, and we've partnered with other companies that focus on what they're good at. And we do have some AI type security features to help protect your security side of things as well. The main one of these being sandboxing, where if we detect a new type of internet traffic that we don't recognize, we can sandbox that traffic, send it up to the cloud, and have AI basically test and poke and figure out what that traffic is and let you know, is this good or is this bad? And the great thing about this is all of your appliances are linked. So if one appliance encounters something new and determines it's a threat, we can automatically push that out to all of our devices and let them know that, rather than waiting a week or two for a security vendor to pump out a new security license for it. So it allows us to find, identify, and protect you from zero-day threats. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the other tools that are available for you as a Zyxel reseller, maybe also as a Zyxel end user. So the first one is you have a Zyxel account. There is a My Zyxel page. And this is one account that you create for you and each of your employees that you use for basically everything. You can use this for online license management for your security appliances. You also use this for your reporting with like SecuReporter. If you're using Nebula, you use the account for Nebula. If you're buying licenses online, you're using that same account. So it's all tied together. So when it comes to management, you have obviously standalone mode on all of our hardware. Most hardware these days now also supports Nebula, which we already talked about. We also have something called Zyxel One Network. So if you are trying to deploy networks and you don't want to use the cloud, Zyxel One Network is basically a bunch of tools that make it easier for you to directly manage your products. We have the Zone utility, which is able to discover Zyxel hardware on the network and give you a report showing you the existing Zyxel hardware, showing you their IP addresses, and giving you a link to take you over to their web interface. It also includes the access point controller that's built in on our security appliances. Again, so if you want to do managed APs but don't want to use the cloud, you do that here. And then Smart Connect, the ability for a certain Zyxel hardware to find and detect other Zyxel hardware. So for instance, if you're doing switches, your Zyxel switch can detect other Zyxel switches and make it really easy for you to jump from the web GUI of one switch over to the web GUI of a second switch. We do have a Zyxel Education Center available for you as a partner. So this is an online tool that you can go to where we have a number of different programs in place to learn how to use our products in different certification levels. The entry levels are free, the higher levels are paid. Now, this is key. If you want to get up to those higher levels, just talk to your salesperson. We can probably give you the license key to access those for free. Don't pay for it unless our sales guy tells you for whatever reason he can't give it to you. But chances are, if you're one of our partners, we'll be able to hook you up with free keys to access these other higher levels of certification and education. Now let's talk about e-commerce. So for standalone individuals, we have the Zyxel store. So the Zyxel store is an online store for buying our hardware. It's accessed from store.zyxel.com. Prices here will match the prices at Amazon. And in fact, when you buy from the Zyxel store, the hardware is shipped from Amazon to you. So again, this is aimed at end users who, want to buy our hardware, but, don't want to either buy in one or two pieces. They don't want to deal with a reseller or whatever. Marketplace. So Marketplace is our online store for end users for selling licenses, such as Nebula licenses, security licenses. And that is tied into Nebula. So if they are using Nebula, you can go from Nebula directly into Marketplace, etc. You're here at our partner introduction webinar, so you are probably a partner. You should be using Circle. So Circle is our version of Marketplace with Nebula integration for resellers. So this is something you have to apply for online and has to be approved to make sure, someone who's not a Zyxel partner isn't getting access to it. But it lets you buy your licenses online and easily deploy those through Circle. So let's talk pricing. So pricing is cheaper than what you would get at Marketplace. So every month I see partners who are buying from Marketplace don't. Take the 30 seconds to apply for a Circle access and get access to Circle. So Circle prices will be discounted. They will be cheaper than what you would buy at Marketplace as an end user. However, the best license prices are always going to be or should be through our distribution partners. Ingram, Target, etc. These should be able to offer you better prices. So Circle is easy, but a little bit more expensive. Buying through distribution, a little bit harder, but better prices. This is just showing you here with Circle, it gives you one place to go to buy your licenses, makes it easy to align your licenses so things all expire at the same time. And as I mentioned earlier, we now have that PayG functionality where instead of worrying about this, you simply take an org, say PayG, and every month we track the utilization of hardware on that site and just bill you for what was actually used that month. And with that, we are done with the presentation. I know it's gone on long. I know we had some technical difficulties earlier. So here we go. If you have any questions, send them in. Chat or question and answer, doesn't matter. I'll take either of those. I will see them. You can always also reach out to your sales guy with any questions later and they can get you the answer or put you in touch with me if you need it. James was asking about NFR, and I think someone else was asking about NFR earlier. So as a Zyxel partner, on most SKUs, you have access to NFR purchasing. And you do that through your sales guy. So again, as a partner, you've been assigned to either Andy, David, or Jacob. If you are looking for something for NFR, they can hook you up through distribution. So you'll reach out to them. You'll tell them what you're looking for. They'll qualify it, make sure it qualifies. You'll tell them which distributor you want to buy it through, and we'll load up NFR pricing through that distributor for you. Also, right now, we are doing a free 60-day demo of Nebula hardware. We've got three different bundles you can choose from. We will send it to you for free. You can play with it for 60 days. And at the end of 60 days, you either ship it back to us, or if you decide to keep it, we will give you some special pricing. I think 50% off pricing, something like that, to keep the hardware. So if you're interested in Nebula, if you're interested in our hardware, reach out to your sales guys. They can hook you up with that. I am not seeing any questions coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. I hope I see you at my next one. Thank you.